Hello friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Riya Gandhi and today's video is episode 3 of the lecture series on UGC NET English exam. In today's video, we are going to deal with 3 of the most important and frequently asked Russian writers in UGC NET English exam. This video will begin with a quick discussion on the history of Russian literature because not a lot of people have talked about that, followed by a discussion on these 3 writers. Stay tuned till the end of this video because we'll also be covering a PYQ session on these 3 writers. First, let us begin our discussion with a quick overview of the history of Russian literature. First of all, it begins with the pre-Petrine or the Old Russian literature, which is basically marked from the Christianization of Russia in 988 to the conquest of Russia by the Tatars. This period is marked with the translation or the adaptation of the borrowed works, and the central genre is hagiography. Now, what is hagiography? Hagiography is basically an interesting documentation of the saints' lives. The next period in Russian literature was the Age of Enlightenment. It is called as the Age of Enlightenment because it is marked with Peter the Great's influence on the Russian arts and culture. There was rapid westernization of Russia during this period, which led to rapid proliferation of Russian arts and culture with a great influence of French literature. This led to a large cultural gap between the upper nobility and the peasants. The upper nobility only spoke in French despite being in Russia. This cultural gap was a major theme in Russian literature during this point of time. So you have writers like Vasily Kirillovich and Alexander Petrovich talking about this cultural gap influenced by French literature. Next period is the Golden Age of Russian literature. Why is it called as the Golden Age? Because the literature produced during this period was similar to the kind of literature that was produced during the Romantic Age of American literature and the British English literature. It was also during this age that you see the emergence of famous writers like Alexander Pushkin, who published his pre-realistic verse novel Eugene Onegin in 1833. It was also during this period that you see the emergence of popular writers like Leo Tolstoy, Fyodor Dostoevsky, Ivan Turgenev. Not only that, but you also see the emergence of the first great Russian novel, that is Dead Souls, by Nikolai Gogol. And then after the Golden Age, you see the emergence of the Silver Age in Russian literature from 1890s to the 20th century. It was during this age that you see the emergence of Russian poetry with its emphasis on Russian symbolism. And let's not forget that it was during this period that you have the emergence of Russian formalistic ideas with critiques like Viktor Shklovsky providing the concepts of defamiliarization. The concept of defamiliarization has proven to be the cornerstone in Russian formalism and also structuralism. Then comes the Soviet era, which is marked by the proliferation of the proletarian literature or working class literature. It was also during this point that you see the emergence of social realism novels, especially with writers like Maxim Gorky writing novels like Mother. In fact, Maxim Gorky is also termed as the father of social realism. And then in the post-Soviet era, which is also called as the Bronze Age in Russian literature, you see the emergence of various other genres, post-realism, magic realism, children's literature, and others, where Russian literature is opening up its gateways not just to social realism or propagandist literature for that matter, but also to other literary genres. Now that you have a brief understanding of the history of Russian literature, let's focus upon the first important Russian writer from UGC NET English exam, and that is Fyodor Dostoevsky. Dostoevsky is considered to be one of the most influential Russian novelists because of his emphasis upon the psyche of the human mind in his novels. He has penetrated into the darkest, the innermost recesses of the human mind to talk about murder, self-destruction, insanity, suicide, and more. Some of the major events in his life have been the mock execution by the first Tsar, followed by his toughest imprisonment in Siberia and his epileptic seizures. All of these events motivated him to talk about the ambiguous notions of morality in his novels. In fact, while he was a child, while he was just a student, he was very much influenced by the romantic and gothic fiction. He loved to read Sir Walter Scott and Radcliffe and more. One of his most important novels, especially from UGC NET point of view, has been Crime and Punishment. Crime and Punishment was published in 1866. It is basically the story of a young intellectual called Raskolnikov who murders an old pawnbroker woman. Is there a concrete reason for that? Did she do something to him? Not at all. He killed her because of a utilitarian thought that maybe if I kill her, then it will help the weaker section of the society. And this leads to questions of ambiguous morality. What is good? What is evil? Is it something that you and I have concocted out of our own imaginations? This is what Raskolnikov asks his readers. His other important works are The Brothers Karamazov that was published in 1879, The Idiot that was published in 1869, Demons in 1872, and also Notes from the Underground. The second most important Russian writer from UGC NET point of view is Leo Tolstoy. Leo Tolstoy is considered to be the master of realistic fiction. Unlike Fyodor Dostoevsky, Tolstoy was born into an aristocratic family. In fact, he was considered to be a count. One of the most interesting facts about Leo Tolstoy is that he has published a book called The Kingdom of God is Within You. Now, this work was so influential on Mahatma Gandhi that he chose the path of non-violence after reading this particular work. In fact, Gandhi even described Tolstoy as the greatest apostle of non-violence that the present age has produced. Unlike other writers and other audiences of the time, Tolstoy had very unpopular opinions on Shakespeare. In fact, he said that all of Shakespeare's plays result into three emotions in him, and those are disgust, boredom, and astonishment. Quite unpopular for his time, but then again, you have Leo Tolstoy, and his most important work is Anna Karenina. Friends, one thing that you should remember about Anna Karenina is that in December 2023 UGC NET English paper, 4 to 5 questions were solely related to Anna Karenina. So make sure that before you appear for your UGC NET English exam in January, that you go through this work in detail. Anna Karenina was published in 1878, and it begins with one of the most famous lines in English literature, which are, "All happy families resemble each other. Each unhappy family is unhappy in its own way." And what are the families that we are talking about in Anna Karenina? They are the Oblonskys, the Karenins, and the Levins. The eponymous heroine, which is Anna Karenina, is basically the wife of Alexei Karenin and the mother of a young boy, Seryoza. But then she is quite unhappy and unsatisfied with her married life. And then she passionately falls in love with Vronsky. And it is such a decision that sort of leaves her with no choice than to just leave her husband and her son and start to live with Vronsky. Towards the end of the novel, she's gripped with this guilt, this remorse of leaving her family and sort of getting into an affair with Vronsky. She's just on this edge of madness. And that's when she decides to end her life by committing suicide and by laying herself on the railway tracks. Leo Tolstoy's next important work from UGC NET point of view is War and Peace. Published in 1867, it is a humongous work that sort of interweaves three disparate things. First, the Napoleonic Wars, the biographies of fictional characters, and a series of essays on philosophy of history. How does he involve three disparate things? We don't know. And another work is The Death of Ivan Ilyich that was published in 1886, and it is considered to be the perfect example of a novella. The third important Russian writer from UGC NET point of view is Vladimir Nabokov. He is a Russian-born American novelist and critic, which makes him the most important Russian émigré writers. As we discussed, émigré writers are basically the writers who sort of live outside of Russia, but their works are predominantly very Russian in theme. Before he became the renowned novelist that we know him to be today, he was also a poet. And a very interesting fact about Nabokov is that he never purchased a house. Not only that, but he sort of had a bone to pick with Dostoevsky, for God knows why. He did not like Dostoevsky's novels. In fact, he called them to be petty and juvenile. One of the most important novels and yet very controversial of Vladimir Nabokov is Lolita. It was published in 1955 and it was so controversial that it was banned in countries like France, Argentina and more. Why it was controversial? Because it basically focused upon the themes of hebephilia and obsession. What is hebephilia? Hebephilia is wherein the male adults, or basically the adults, they have this obsession towards young pubescent girls. And that's what the anti-hero of this particular novel, Humbert, comes in. We really don't know the name of the character. It's just a pseudonym Humbert that we know. And he's a French literature professor who has this sexual obsession towards the 12-year-old nymphette Dolores Hayes, whom he calls as Lolita. Now, the complexity of the novel is sort of added with its unreliable narrator. At the same time, how he's trying to justify his situation, how he's trying to justify his relationship with Dolores Hayes, and the way he's added the lyrical lines and the lyrical verses, almost making it very poetic, right? Other important novels of Vladimir Nabokov are Pale Fire, that was published in 1962. It consists of a long poem and a commentary. And his last work was the original of Laura. Now, it was published posthumously in 2009 and it has a very interesting story to it. So, he died at somewhere around 1977, correct? But then, while he died, this work was unfinished. So he told his wife Vera that you please burn it. But then she kept safely in the Swiss bank vault. And after she died, their son Dmitri sort of decided to publish it. And it came out then in 2009. Now that you have a comprehensive understanding of the top 3 most important Russian writers from UGC NET English exam, let's understand why they are so important. A lot of times, questions related to these writers and their important works are frequently asked in UGC NET English exam. Questions like, which of the following statements best describes Anna Karenina's situation and worldview? Anna is deeply committed to the family and children. Anna's choices were more an outcome of passion and instinct. Anna accepted the exile to which she was condemned. Anna's passionate spirit and determination live life at her own terms make her so unique. She became a victim of rampant patriarchal forces. The first obvious correct choice is E. She became a victim of rampant patriarchal forces because it talks about family, marriage, where women becomes the most repressed there. Second, she's also living her life at her own way. She's fully passionate and determined to live her life in her own way. So the next obvious choice is D. But we also need to remember that towards the end of the novel that she was gripped with that remorse, that guilt. That's why A is also the right option. Anna is deeply committed to the family and children. So the right statements are A, D and E. Moving on to the next question. What among the following is not true about Anna Karenina? The novel was published in 1872. The novel is written in 8 parts. It tells the story of 2 major characters, Anna and Konstantin Levin. The novel is revolutionary in its treatment of women. Now, the incorrect statement is the novel was published in 1872. Moving on to the next question we have, which of the following features are present in Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment? One of the most prominent features present in Crime and Punishment is utilitarianism. Which is the second most prominent feature? Type that down in the comment section below. The next question is, what is the subject of Ivan's controversial essay in Brothers Karamazov? The answer is D, the ecclesiastical courts. Apart from Fyodor Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment, one of the most important works is the Brothers Karamazov. So make sure that you go through that work in detail as well. So friends, these are some of the kind of questions that are asked related to the Russian writers. Now that you have a basic idea that what kind of questions are asked, here is a mock quiz question for you. In Vladimir Nabokov's Lolita, the narrative technique is central to the novel's complexity. Which of the following best describes the narrative style employed in the text? I discussed this narrative style in this video itself. So, type that down in the comment section below that what is the narrative style that is employed in the text. If you don't know, go back to the video where we discussed Lolita and find out that answer.
These were 3 of the most important Russian writers who are frequently asked in UGC NET English syllabus. Apart from Russian literature, a significant portion of UGC NET English syllabus is dedicated towards Indian English literature. Now, what if I told you that you can get a comprehensive idea about the history of Indian English literature, some of its most important works, authors and concepts, and also get a tried and tested UGC NET English preparation strategy in just 1 hour? Don't believe me? Check out my 1-hour masterclass on Indian English literature in which I am covering the history of Indian English literature, followed by a discussion on some of the most important and frequently asked Indian English writers, cover their frequently asked works, and solve PYQs which will provide you the confidence to ace UGC NET English exam. The best part about this masterclass? This is a one-on-one session, which means that I can provide you the personalized guidance tailored to your needs and requirements, trying to fill the possible gaps in your UGC NET preparation journey. If you want to know more about this masterclass on Indian English literature, you can check out my TopMate page. It's topmate.io/Riya Gandhi. I've shared the link in the description box below, so don't forget to check it out. That's it for today's video, folks. If you found this video on the 3 most important Russian writers informative and helpful from UGC NET point of view, please like it and share it with other UGC NET English aspirants. Also, don't forget to hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss any videos that I will be uploading on the lecture series for UGC NET English exam in the future. Thank you so much for watching till the end, and I'll see you in the next one.